Okay, Erev Tov, everybody. So, just a reminder: tonight there is no chizuk at 7:30, but at 6 o'clock is the Achenu Global Siyum. You should have the details of that in your emails, and it's highly worthwhile. I recommend logging onto that. One of the things that the Gemara in Brachot tells us, there are certain things Shem Dimbru Moshel Olam V'adayin Shochim Chizuk or Bnei Adam Zalzalim B'Hem. There are certain things which are the most important things in the world, and people don't take them seriously. Certain things which need chizuk. One of those things is tefillah, it's davening. I think maybe the Gemara was written about times like ours. Now we are 38 days into this war, whatever it may be. We're starting to lose count how many days it is, and we're still saying Tehillim every day, and as we should be. And the way of the world is natural. As time goes on, we become complacent. It becomes harder. The first few days, everybody can remember the way on. Standing here on Simchat Torah, before we knew what was going on, we said Halal. It was the quickest Halal that we've ever said, but it was Ana Hashem Moshiana, with I think the most kavanah that we've ever had as well. And the first couple of days, everything, what's going on, how serious the situation is. That tefillah looks different, it sounds different, it feels different. 38 days in, okay, it's another Shir HaMa'alot, it's another Shir HaMa'alot, whatever it is. Again, I'm not saying it, I'm talking to myself more than anybody else. Not in a way to be disparaging, but the way of the world is we get used to things, and we are complacent. We need to give ourselves that chizukah. We need to awaken ourselves. Our tefillah now is just as important as it was 38 days ago. I can tell you, just in the last day, I got messages from both of the yeshivot where I learned independently, different bugrim, different chayalim from each of the yeshivot who need tefillot, who've been injured, p'tua kasher here, p'tua kasher there. Also, when we hear those words, somebody's been wounded. Now you think, I used to think, okay, somebody's patsua, so they've got a cut or whatever it is, they're in hospital, they'll come out. Patsua kasher might mean they don't have legs anymore. Patsua kasher means a person's never walking again. It can mean. So we still need tefillot, Baruch Hashem, along with all that's happened. Our army is doing very, very well, and Hashem has done many miracles, but we still need tefillot, we still need chizuk. So it's just something I think to bear in mind. Speaking of tefillot, so we've been discussing some of the Tehillim that we say, understanding some of the emotions, and we've been going through the last few days Mizmor Pei Gimel, this Mizmor which talks about war. I want to read to you the introduction, the Art Scroll Tehillim to Mizmor Pei Gimel, and any similarity between the commentary of the Psalm and contemporary events is purely coincidental. It says the Psalm is related to the period of Yoshafat's reign, recorded in Divrei Yamim Bet, chapter 20, Radak Malbim. After Yoshafat completed his renovation of the judicial system, the land of Judea was attacked by the armies of Ammon, Moab, Aram, and Seir, Edom. Malbim proves from this psalm that these nations were bent on annihilating Israel. They hired mercenaries from every prominent nation in the area so that Israel would be completely overwhelmed by their vast legions. The psalmist here reveals the deeper intentions of these marauding nations. Their ultimate desire was not merely to destroy Israel, but to obliterate the name of God from the face of the earth. Therefore, Yehoshaphat employed the power of song as his chief weapon against his foes. Through song, he declared that God does indeed reign supreme over the universe. Again, any similarity between that and contemporary events is purely coincidental. Obviously not. I mean, this is talking about. We said the Midrash says Tehillim are written Keneged all generations. That's what we see. The truth is that this part at the end here, the Midrash, somewhat famous Midrash, talks about 4 different kings and how they each went out into battle. And we'll talk about it one day. David HaMelech, Chizkiyahu, Asa, and Yoshafat, each one had a different level of bitachon, each one had a different level of hishtadlut, to what extent that they rely on going to war, or the extent that they rely on their tefillah. Very fascinating midrash we can talk about sometime. But one of the things, what emerges from the psalm, and what we've seen already, is this idea which was expressed here, that again, these nations are not just fighting against us, they're fighting against God. And there is an awakening here. The psalmist is not just telling us, he's not telling us military strategy. He's not telling us what they were doing, just so we know what they were doing, but we understand where they are coming from, what they are fighting against. It tells us what we are and what we need to think about. Rabbi Wein spoke about on Shabbat, taking away the layers, taking off the masks, understanding who we really are and what our battle is. And again, it comes here again and again in this in these words we've already seen. Where he says, right, it's against you. They've come together, made this covenant against you, Hashem. So as we were talking about this and understanding this, I saw something this week, which some of you may have seen again. It was a post which was written by somebody called Omer Barak. Never heard of him before. He's a writer, a journalist, completely secular. He's not religious at all. And this is what he writes this week, or he wrote this a few weeks ago. An understanding here of Alecha Brit Yichrotu. So he says like this. He says, "B'misgeret cheshbon hanefesh." The post is in Hebrew. I'll read it in Hebrew and we'll translate. "B'misgeret cheshbon hanefesh advarim shechashavti vayom ani choshev achelet." Says these days have caused all of us to think a little bit. I too have done a cheshbon hanefesh, and now I think a little bit differently to what I thought before. He says, "Olot li shtei milim bilvad, shtei milim shesiravti la'agid otam." He says there are two words which until today I've never said. I've always refused to say these two words, and today I will say these two words. Ani Yehudi. Wow, I don't need to translate that, right? He says, "Kama saneti etzemed hamilim ha'ele." To say I'm Jewish, how much I hated those words. B'chol hartza'ah, b'chol, this is a famous person, a journalist. He goes around, he lectures, he talks. He would go around, he would say, "I'm not Jewish, I'm Israeli." But that was his thing. He says, every time I go overseas, I would tell people, "Ani Israeli." Somebody would say, "Are you Jewish?" "No, I'm Israeli." I was born a Jew, but I have nothing, not anymore. Israeli. This was written a week after October 7th. He says, he says that this answer doesn't hold any. It doesn't give me a rest. בבית שגדלתי בו יש בוז ליהדות, וגם בלי הבית שגדלתי בו נדמה לי שפשוט לא רציתי להאמין שאני הילד עם הקסקט. So he says, in the house where I grew up, there was mocking, scorning of Judaism. It's not something we didn't have anything Jewish. We didn't respect it. He says, I always wanted to believe I'm not, the old Jew. He says, ילד עם הקסקט. It's a reference here to the famous picture from the Holocaust of the boy with the cap. It's like, he says, no, I wanted to say that's not me. That's a different world. That's something else. And that's gone. I wanted to believe that I'm a person of the great big world. Sofer, a writer, עיתונאי, journalist, תסריטאי. יהדות שלי אינה חלק מהזהות שלי. He says, my Judaism was not part of my identity. That was something else. אפילו בתעודת זהות שלי היא איננה. Even on the תעודת זהות, it doesn't say Jewish. And he says, גם בזה טעיתי. With that too, I made a mistake. כי אני אולי לא הילד עם הקסקט, אבל אני יהודי. Because I've understood now, with what's happened, that I'm a Jew. זו פעם ראשונה בחיי שהבנתי שלא משנה כמה אני אנסה, אני לא יכול לברוח מזה. He says, for the first time I'm starting to understand that however much I try and run away from this, none of us can run away from it. This is who we are. And so listen to what he does. Listen to what he does when he has this realization. He says, אני גאה ביהדות שלי. I'm proud to be Jewish. אני מתבייש שהתכחשתי לה. I'm embarrassed that I denied it. אני לא אלך עכשיו עם כיפה וגם לא נראה לי שתראו אותי בבית הכנסת. Before you get too excited of it, you've succeeded in your Kiruv project. That's not the case. I'm not overnight. I'm not going to change everything. I'm not going to start wearing a kippah. You're not going to see me in shul. אבל אני אחפש את היהדות שלי. But I'm going to search for my Judaism. אני אחפש את האלוקים שלי. I'll search for God. אני אחפש את הזהות שכל כך הרבה שנים ועידנים מנסים להשמיד. I'm going to look for the identity which for so many years, for so many generations, they've been trying to destroy. ואני בטעות כמעט השמדתי בעצמי ובמו ידיי. So all these enemies, read about them. They've all been trying to destroy this for so many years, for so many generations. They failed and I almost gave them the victory by destroying it myself. So he says, היום הדלקתי נרות עם הילדים שלי. The first time, it's completely secular. He doesn't keep any mitzvot. He doesn't fast. He doesn't do anything. He says, but he had this realization. He had to do something. So he says, I got my kids. We went and we lit candles. That's what comes next. פעם ראשונה בחיים. First time in my life. אפילו לא היו לי בבית. אבל רציתי. So I didn't have candles. I don't know. He doesn't say where he got them from. Okay, he found candles somewhere. He says, גם לא ידענו מה מברכים. So elementary, he doesn't know what the bracha is that you make. So what does he do? אז אמרנו את הברכות של חנוכה. He says he went to light Shabbat candles. He had to feel Jewish. He had to do something. The he didn't know the brachot. He knew the brachot of Hanukkah, so he lit the candles. He said, "Ladlik ner shel Hanukkah on Friday night." Why? To feel a sense of something Jewish. Sheyeh, so it should be. V'itpalalti, he says, and I prayed. Al hachatufim, for the captives, al hachayalim, for the soldiers, v'aleinu, and for us. He says, Ani lo yodea im ani aseh et zeh kol shavua. I don't know if I'm going to say it every week. Hopefully he's not going to say the bracha of Hanukkah every week. Ani lo yodea lain yikach oti hamasa hazeh. I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't know where this journey will take me. אני כן יודע שאני יום ברק סופר, עיתונאי, תסריטאי, ישראלי, and then he adds in at the end, ויהודי. And that is, I don't think I really need to add any words to that. It's an amazing post that's been going around this week, and this guy's been on, like I said, I'd never heard of him before. He's been on the radio, he's been on TV, he's been all over the place. I'm sure you'll hear of him. And that is sometimes we aren't able to, we don't realize it ourselves, but we have all these, or those who come out, who come against us from across the world. And they come and they say, it says, they come together and they have this brit that comes against who we are and against what we represent. And we have no choice but to look in the mirror and to say, who are we and what do we represent and what is it all about and what are we fighting for? And that is what this psalm represents. And that's what it says at the end. It's talking about them, but of course it's talking about us as well. We mentioned briefly on Thursday the parallel at the end of this parak to Sefer Shmot, to the story with Paro and Mitzrayim. But it says, "Ve'edu ki ata shimcha Hashem levadecha elyon al kol haaretz." And they should all know, and we should all know, that your name is God, and our name, therefore, is the nation of God. You alone, levadecha elyon al kol haaretz, over all of the earth. וחנניה בן הקשה אומר, הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות ישראל, לפיכך ובעליהם תורה מצוות, שנאמר לך בזמן צדקו, יגדיר תורה ויעזור. אמן.